I have some questions from the students here, and there is this question. I don't know if you're going to answer this, but let's see. The student was like, students like they're doing actuarial science, and all they're thinking about is money, because they've been told that it's lucrative and stuff like that.
Oh,
So the student was like, "What is the salary bracket?" He was like, "Ask her what is the salary bracket. How much will I be getting paid?" Kind of stuff.
yeah, that's hectic. I don't know if I can answer it. That's but all I can say to you is that so get those exemptions. The more of them you have, the better you get paid, especially as a graduate where you have no experience to leverage on. So you
Yeah.
can't say, I haven't passed this and so exam. I'm very much, an expert in 1, 2, 3. So that can be, negotiation thing. But in your first 3 years of work, probably your exam are probably the biggest thing you can use to negotiate. So get those exemptions. And what I can say is that the growth is definitely the growth is there. There's just a very, what I can say, an exponential growth in your income from when you start and as you go along. So it's yes. Okay.
Okay. Another segment, another episode. And today I feel like money, 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 money. So today I have Mudibadi Mathule Malerotho. She's a senior actuarial analyst, and that's why I feel like money today.
Yeah, there's no, but okay.
So, Konja, where's home?
Home is so Raradingwana, Jane Fesa, not far from where you're from.
You
Why are you shocked?
lie.
I told you this before.
Really? No, no,
Yes,
really. I just,
yes, I'm pretty sure
I
because
just,
I know. So I imagine that's because we've spoken about where we're from.
oh my goodness. Wow, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, but I also lived go Soshanguve, which is probably what's confusing you. So born Garadingwana until I was lived there until I was 10, and then Kaya Soshanguve from in 2005 throughout until I did my high school there.
Oh, now I see. I see. I see. I see. I see. Now I understand. But the bottom line is that we're from the same place.
Yes, yes.
Wow,
But
that's
home, that's where I go. Koko Rai.
oh. When was
So
the last
yeah,
time?
from this.
When was the last time you went home?
Last month probably. I go home quite a lot. Yes, for my uncle's funeral. I think it was last month. So I did go.
Yeah.
But home quite a lot, like a lot.
I have a lot of people, a lot of students actually, who are so much interested in the career in actuarial science. Very much interested in it. In fact, I have some questions from my students here, but we're gonna get into them when we continue. But maybe we can start by where you are right now, senior actuarial analyst. What does your role entail? Yeah?
So my current role has literally just been IFRS 17. So basically, what happened is what's IFRS? International Financial Reporting Standards. So obviously they govern how financial institutions, but for my particular interest would be insurers, how insurers report their results, right? So their assets, their liabilities, their profits. So what happened is a few years ago, a new standard was developed, IFRS 17, which is meant to align how insurers worldwide report their profits. Because what used to happen was insurer A would just kind of report their profits in a way that was specific to them. I mean, even though there was a guiding standard, there was a lot of room for maybe deciding how you report certain things. So this one is trying to align, create some sort of consistency in how insurance companies report. So I think for the past year and a half, if not longer, I've been in projects where we assist insurers to ensure that moving from the previous standard to the current one, which is becoming in effect next year, that transition is correct. So if you valued, let's say, one policy using IFRS 4, what methods are you going to apply to make sure that your transition into IFRS 17 is the way that it should be? So that's basically the high level of my role is currently. But most of my experience before this one has been valuations. So I've been doing a lot of life insurance policy valuations where at the end of each year, for example, or sometimes quarter, we have to calculate how much insurers have to have in reserves just as a minimum to be in a position where they're comfortable that they can pay policies with them. In a nutshell, I'm trying to summarize it that way. So in terms of my particular role, that's what it is. I'm not sure if we're going to get into the general actuarial science career spectrum. I think that would be probably something that's important for your students.
Yeah, definitely we're going to get into that. But I used to think that IFRS is accounting thing.
It's accounting, yes, but insurance is actuarial in a nutshell. So particularly for insurance companies, actuaries have to value them. So that one line on that balance sheet that says insurance liabilities, it takes a lot of actuarial resources to just produce that one line. Yes, the entire balance sheet is an accounting thing, because it has assets and liabilities, not just the liability. But one of those liabilities is particularly insurance liabilities. And that's the thing that actuaries, that's the thing that is an input from actuaries on that statement.
So we're shooting this on a Sunday. Were you at work on Friday?
On Friday, of course, I was at work on Friday.
What did you do? Like, take us through your day, like just your normal day in your role. Like, you get into work, you do what, stuff like that,
What I've been doing. So on Friday in particular, so what I've been doing for the past month on this client that I'm working on is that, so again, I told you I'm on IFRS 17, right?
Sure.
So the client has written down a paper, about how they're going to do this IFRS 17 calculations, how they're going to calculate their liabilities, how they're going to value their policies. So what I'm doing is to say, okay, this is the standard. This is what they've done. Is what they've done in line with the standard?
Oh.
So for example, I'm going to select this section of the standard that is talking about, say, discount rates, how maybe cash flow be discounted for a particular kind of policy. So what I do is to create something before even looking at what they've done, so that I can be independent in how I'm reviewing their things. So before even looking at what they've done, I'm going to look at the standard and say, these are the 5 things that the standard is saying. The standard is saying, they are, the maybe, for example, discounting fixed cash flows that don't depend on whatever returns that you've earned. Discounting those has to be maybe based on a certain kind of yield curve, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to put that down somewhere, and then I'm going to go into their paper and look at what they're saying they're doing to discount a certain type of cash flow, and then make sure that I'm comfortable that this is in line with what's supposed to happen. So that's what I've been doing for probably the past 2 weeks, if not more. It's the standard is probably like 100-page paper or something, and there is quite a lot of ambiguity sometimes. There's a lot of interpretation that's needed, so it's just a lot goes into it.
Let's look at a typical day in your work. You get into work probably, I don't know at what time do you guys get into work. Like, just take us through a day as a senior actuarial analyst until you log off.
Yes. So what I've just described is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Because that's probably going to take 4 or 5 hours of that day, right?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
That's probably take 4 hours of a day. So obviously, I mean, you come into the office and there's probably some team meeting at 9:30. Everyone is talking about, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's your availability for the week? Because I think that's probably more relevant in a consulting space than in an in-house insurer. So we have to know what's Ben's availability this week. What's my availability this week? Okay, Monday to Friday, I'm going to be working on this client doing 1, 2, 3. So that maybe your manager knows that, this guy by Thursday, he's going to be free. Maybe by Thursday, I can get him to help me on something. So that's probably a 30 minutes meeting. And then after that, say by 10, I would have a meeting with a junior analyst so I have something like that, a junior analyst in my team whose work I review. So after that main team meeting, I still have to talk to someone in my particular project to see where she is on something that she's doing so that I can review it and also just plan a bit further. And then maybe by 10:30, 11, that's where you actually doing your work starts, right? That's where you actually doing that methodology paper review starts. And if obviously sometimes I'm going to get stuck, then I'll need to speak to my senior manager and get his input on certain things that I'm doing. And if there's something that we just really all don't understand, we're going to need to set up a meeting with our client to say, hey, we're not sure we understand what you're saying or what you've done in your calculations. Can you please explain this spreadsheet to us? So I think that's just that's a typical day in my work.
Wow, quite interesting, and it seems like you curate your day, like every day can be different kind of a thing.
Yeah, so every day can be different, but that honestly depends on the kind of work that you're doing. Like if you're doing the kind of work that I'm doing now for the past 2 or 3 weeks, then probably your day probably won't be that much different. Of course, it's going to have its own contingencies here and there, but it becomes very similar. It becomes very monotonous. You get used to what you're doing, and that's probably how you get better at it, right?
Yeah. So like at varsity, I was talking to this other student the other time, and they were telling me they're doing actuarial science, and of course we know it's very hard and stuff. So I'm just asking myself, like in the workplace, does it get harder, like the way it does get hard when you're studying it?
It does get hard. Like I think a lot of people don't believe you when you tell them that. For me personally, the first 2 years of my work, I couldn't tell you at that time what I was doing. I don't know if that makes sense.
I get you.
I couldn't articulate. Yes, I couldn't articulate at that time. Like I know I'm calculating liabilities. I'm using, expected mortality rates and expenses per policy and blah blah to come at a liability, and then also do an analysis of the profits for that year. But I couldn't really sit here with you or with anyone and really just articulate what I was doing. So it's very technical, especially in a valuation space. I think in a product development space and pricing space, it's easier, but evaluation space is a very technical core actuarial space. So yes, the first 2 years, very hard. But I mean, it gets from an understanding point of view, it obviously gets easier with time. But what gets hard is obviously having to balance out your work and your studies. That's something that I think is quite common with actuarial students, that we still have to write our board exams, and
Sure.
yes, that definitely makes it so much harder if that's the context you were asking.
So do you still use the things that you've learned at varsity? Do you apply them on a day-to-day basis at your work?
Yes, quite a lot theory. What we did in contingencies, that's something that you actually use at work. But probably again resonates with me because I'm in a technical space. I'm in evaluation space. So I always tell people that valuations is probably the value proposition of the actuarial profession. That's where the core of your education actually gets used on a daily basis. So
Let's get into that. Like the actuarial spectrum, like when you graduate with actuarial science, like you spoke about evaluations right now. There is life insurance, stuff like that. Can you take us through the different sort of branches or disciplines? I don't have a word, but you get what I mean, right?
this is my favorite part because this is the part that I didn't know. So I think this is probably the part that's going to be of the most value to anyone watching this. So what happens is the spectrum itself. So you can be in life insurance, you can be in investments, you can be in short-term insurance, which entails, car, household insurance. You can be in pensions. I think our good friend Mahudu was here and he spoke at length about pensions.
Yeah.
You now banking. I hope I'm not, and health. I mean, health in a way falls into both life and short term, but it's too big to not be specified on its own. So those are the big branches, like in medicine, saying someone is an optometrist,
Yeah.
another one is a dentist, and then within those now, like for me, I'm in life insurance, someone is in short term, but within each of them there's now, you can be in product design, so people that actually design, those calls that you get, hi sir, we're selling a policy that's going to pay you maybe 1 million, if you die it's going to get paid to your beneficiaries and you pay this amount. Someone had to design that, right? So we call that the product development space, the people that actually design that. And then after a product is designed, it obviously gets sold, and then it has to be, people have to be assessed, blah blah blah. But once it's sold, it has to be valued, right?
Yes.
Once it's sold, it has to be valued. So that's where my side of things come. We have to, on a maybe quarterly or yearly basis, value how much that policy is worth once someone has actually bought it. So that's that. So I've actually skipped another discipline. There's pricing. So after it gets designed, it has to be priced. Someone has to actually say, for this level of risk that we're taking, someone will have to maybe pay 500 rands per month. If we want to be able to afford these claims and, cover our expenses and also make the profit that our shareholders want, we need to charge it this much. So there's an entire team of actuaries that decided on that price. So I've spoken about the design, the pricing, and the valuing, right? And then after it gets valued, someone at the Prudential Authority has to, I guess, assess to make sure that this company really does have enough assets to cover their insurance liabilities. So you can also be an actuary that works at the Prudential Authority, is what I'm trying to say. Instead of working at the insurance company, you can work at the Prudential Authority. So the Prudential Authority is the regulator. You can regulate insurance companies. And then I hope I haven't forgotten any other. Oh, so there's others that also manage capital. So their work is to make sure that, okay, if they have assets of 10 and the valuators have valued that the liabilities are worth maybe 7, so how much additional assets do they need to have just as a buffer? Do you get it? Between, just as a buffer? So if the liabilities are 7, the Prudential Authority will still say, maybe still hold two more to just be that much more comfortable that you can, pay off your claims if people claim in numbers today.
I see.
So normally have to hold assets that are equal to their liabilities plus some additional asset that we call the solvency capital. So I think the absolute floor that anyone that wants to own an insurance company in South Africa, I think needs to have about 15 million rands. That's the absolute minimum additional solvency capital that you need to have. So I hope that I've covered. So you can be in those different kinds of disciplines, life, short-term, health, blah, blah. And within them, you can be in product development, in pricing, in valuations, capital management, and obviously there's way more. I think those are just the core that are coming to mind for me right now. But I mean, you can do whatever, honestly.
It's such a very huge value chain, huh?
Yes, it is.
And in banking?
I haven't really done any banking, and I'd be lying. Like, I'm going to ramble if I try to say anything about the actuarial role in banking, because I think it's still new. And personally, I haven't really had any interest in it. So I don't know. Actually, I don't imagine anything. I haven't thought about what it is that actuaries do. Because I mean, a whole thing, growing thing happening in banking. We even have a banking fellowship exam now. It's a growing area, but I haven't tapped into it.
So let's say here's a student who's a graduate in actuarial science, and perhaps they're still thinking of where to actually get into, like from what you've listed. What sort of advice can you give them, especially in terms of growth, to say maybe start here, blah, blah, blah?
Absolutely. So in whatever discipline you start, whether it's life, short-term investments, blah, blah, whatever discipline you start, I would advise any graduate to start with the technical stuff. So I would advise anyone to do the very core technical stuff that no one wants to do, the valuations, because that's where you get the first principle of all those numbers. That's where you actually see how all those numbers are calculated. So for me, that's one reason. And the second reason is honestly that it just makes you that much more marketable. That's just the honest truth. Having technical expertise just makes you that much more marketable, because one, there'll always be a need to value, to get to a value at the end of every financial year. And two, because it's so technical, when people get to a certain level in their careers, if they can leave it, they leave. So there's always opportunities there's always opportunities on the technical side of things. That's just that. So for me, that's what I always advise anyone that comes to me to say, what do you think I should do? I always say, just try to get as much technical experience as you can in the first 2 years of your work. And then after that, you can get a feel of what you want. I mean, I have a friend that moved from life into short-term insurance. It's very, I mean, it's fluid. You can move between them, especially because you can take the exam. So we need to take 2 specialist technical exams, which means you can take one in your actual area of practice and one in another. before writing the very final applications exam. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of ability to move, but to reiterate, wherever you start, I would say start with the technical.
We're gonna get into the board exams in a bit, but I was checking your profile. It's kind of like very huge, Just take us through your career journey. Like when you finished graduating, you started working. Where did you start until where you are now?
So I don't like mentioning names of companies, so maybe I'll try to stay away from that. Okay. But I started in pension. I know it's all public, it's on LinkedIn, but so I started in I did that for maybe 6 months, and it just didn't feel like what I wanted to do. So I moved into life insurance, which is the old mutual role that you're looking at. But that also forced me to move cities. I remember I had to move to Cape Town at that time. I had never been there. Luckily, I did have a friend who had also just started working there maybe a few months before me. Or am I lying? Or did he start after me? No, I think I started after him, whatever. But so I actually stayed there for I think 3 years and maybe a few months. And for me, that's where I just I think I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't immediately know what I wanted to do. I'd be lying. I think it was maybe a year after that, because even when I got there, I wasn't really into the work that I was doing at the start. It just felt like it was a bit of a graveyard gig, It felt a bit like a graveyard gig. I won't lie to you. But a few months in, I think that I'm a very confident person. I think I'm able to just try to see what I can do from my side to change things. So what I did was to go to the divisional head at the time, and I told her that I'm not happy with what I'm doing, and I know that this guy is leaving, like a guy that was doing the job that I wanted. I know that this guy is leaving. Can you put me up for that role? Can you? I'm putting my hand up to say that I want to take up that role. And that's how I got it. And that's where everything changed for me. That's where I literally got the experience that probably even today still counts. And that was maybe 2016, 2017. You see. So I did that for, I don't know if it was 2 years or slightly less, but that's where I got incredible technical experience. But obviously, okay, maybe not obvious for everyone. But at some point, I was in Cape Town. It just felt like I had lived out the time that I wanted to stay there. I wanted to now just move back to Gauteng, closer to my family, and that's when I moved. But yeah, everything after that, there was a bit of a forced move. A case of maybe the grass not being greener outside. One of the moves that I made. But yeah, just generally that was that. And now here I've been doing a lot of IFRS 17 work, which is the thing to do at the moment. Like you wanna get IFRS 17 experience, because that's how we're going to be reporting going forward. So it's probably the most marketable skill at the moment, whether local or international roles. If you just time to browse through the actuarial vacancies, and there's IFRS 17 everywhere. Absolute, lack of getting full exposure.
This IFRS 17, where do you learn it? Do you learn it at varsity or do you learn it at work?
Probably not at varsity. It's, this standards for they're probably too accounting for them to be, blasted into the actuarial syllabus. But what can I say? No, I don't think that any varsity level exam is there. I mean, the very last actuarial exam, yes, the fellowship exam, yes, you need to, but no university offers that exam. So I don't think. I think accountants are the ones that maybe get into the nitty-gritty of the standards in varsity. I'm not sure.
So in your case, then how did you get into IFRS 17 in terms of working with it and stuff? Was it at work and all of those?
Work. I mean, at work you have to. You can't get away from it at work.
So you learned it at work?
Yes. I mean, if you have to audit someone and tell them that they're not doing things, in line with something, you have to have read that thing and understood it.
Yeah.
Yes. So all work, honestly. It's all work.
Okay, I see. And earlier on, you spoke about being in Cape Town and, putting yourself in and be like, I want to do this and stuff like that. In terms of growth, especially now when you are putting yourself in, pushing yourself into that, what can you say for someone who's starting out?
Sure. I think it's a dense question, so I need to think. So that's obviously the one thing you want to do is that, like, talk. If you feel like you want to do something different from what you're doing, tell someone. Sorry, 9 times out of 10, they just don't know that you're unhappy with something. Nine times out of 10, they're going to, if you say something, they're going to help you, get into something that you're more comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, as a team, we try to make sure that people want to do what they're doing. We want to make sure that we produce the best results possible. So it's very unlikely that you're going to get, from what I've seen, a boss that's not going to give you the kind of work that you want if you say it out loud. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does.
And think that is going to be the way that you expect them. That's the thing. Because sometimes you're going to sit back and say, oh, but Ben knows. No, Ben probably doesn't know. That's the first thing. And the second thing that for me has really just helped personally was to just be transparent with my peers. Just talk to my peers in the profession about the kind of work that I'm doing and what they're doing, and to see if we actually aligned. I mean, even with finances, I know we're not there. To just have that level of transparency with your peers in your profession, for me, that has helped a lot. So the third thing is, I think, the most obvious one. I mean, you need to play your part. You need to play your part. You need to actually make sure that you also produce, good quality work. And if you're struggling with something, just ask. There's a lot of how can I put it? There's this misconception that, there's stupid questions. When it comes to work, and when it comes to a technical space, especially, which is what I know, there's no such thing. There literally is no such thing. Just whatever little bit of question that you feel like is lingering in your mind, you're not sure, just ask it. Chances are the person you're asking also has to think about it. Yeah, the person you're asking and the other people next to you probably had the same question and didn't really maybe have the willingness, or didn't know they didn't know. So just ask whatever comes to mind and make sure that you actually play your part and manage your expectation. Don't accept too much work that you haven't thought about whether or not you can actually do in the space of time that you're promising. There's usually room for managing your delivery time. So if someone tells me, give me this tomorrow, don't just say yes, even if you know that you have 7 other things to do. And obviously you also just don't want them to come to work tomorrow and they don't have what you said you would give them tomorrow. So sit them down and make them understand that, no, I probably can't deliver this by tomorrow. Can I give this to you by Thursday? Chances are there is room for that and they can plan their other things around. So manage your expectations and just do your part. Do your part.
So job security wise, you guys are sorted, right? I mean,
I don't know about sorted.
I just mean that I don't imagine someone like you looking for a job and not getting a job, I mean, actuarial science, yeah. I think
the entire core of our profession is risk, is managing risk. So there's always a risk that things might not be the way that you think. But yes, there's quite a lot of security and there's a lot of room for movement. I would definitely be lying to you if I said it was as hard as maybe the average person to find a job, to be maybe in a space that you feel like works for you. So yes, especially once you're in. I think I've seen maybe a couple of instances where someone might have struggled to get their first job, but I think once you're in, it just becomes really just fluid.
So what about international opportunities? Obviously, there are a lot, I like to believe.
Yes, there's a lot of those. There's actually been quite a lot of movement, is what I've noticed. Probably in the past 2 years more than any other time. So yes, there's quite a lot of them.
And in terms of companies, if someone is asking to say which companies do they absorb more, in accounting there is this top, what do they call them? The top 5 firms, your KPMG, those kind of things. Do you guys have something similar in actuarial science, that these are the top actuarial companies that you should work for?
I don't know about should work for, but I mean, obviously the bigger, the more they can take in. I think it's as obvious as that, So yeah, I think there's no trick to it. Whatever big insurer there is, there's going to be lots of actuaries employed there. So which one you take goes back to which space you want to get into. Do you want life insurance? Then maybe Old Mutual Insure is not the one, but Old Mutual Limited is the one. If you want to go into short term, Liberty Life is not the one, but which other short-term insurance are there? I think Hollard has a big short-term division. So it's just that. For me, I don't know. I wouldn't advise anyone to just particularly work for this company. You work for a person. You don't work for a company. There's no big company that's just great for you because it's just as an institution, it's a great company. There's no such thing. There is just no such thing.
No, I get you.
So it's more about the people you work for. I think we sometimes forget that you don't work with that logo. You work with human beings. So think more about the people you work for. In the interview, gauge. Just look at them and figure out, this person is this way, this one is this way. A micromanager, he seems, and think about whether that's the kind of person you want to work for. I think for me, that's the more important thing to do, to call someone. If you're going to interview with someone at some company, search away on LinkedIn or not even on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn you'll probably find someone that you're not really acquainted to that's going to give you a very professional, vague idea of someone. Just call someone in your cycle that or hey, I got an interview with this person that I think you work for or have worked for. How is this person? How does he work? How does she work? And get a feel of whether that's the kind of person that you're going to thrive under. That's the kind of person that you'll be able to work with, not a company. I mean, sure, a company is important in terms of, are they loss making? Can, will they retrench after 2 years? So that's that's as much as you should go. I don't think there's anything more than that you should care about when it comes to a brand. And you don't work for it.
And I'm sure also looking at, will the company pay as well?
Yes, I mean that's why I'm like, you do have to look at how they're doing and how they've been doing, and whether there was that kind of risk. I mean, I've worked for a company that I remember had to retrench people, at some time. So there's that, and that's something that just kind of happened unexpectedly. Things just, took a turn, and there were people that were retrenched. And I think I was lucky enough to then look for other opportunities before it came to that, if it were to come to that for me. But those are the things to think about.
Yeah. I have some questions from the students here, and there is this question. I don't know if you're going to answer this, but let's see. The student was like, students like they're doing actuarial science and all they're thinking about is money, because they've been told that it's lucrative and stuff like that.
Oh.
So the student was like, what is the salary bracket? He was like, ask her, what is the salary bracket? How much will I be getting paid, kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's hectic. I don't know if I can answer it. That's but all I can say to you is that so get those exemptions. The more of them you have, the better you get paid, especially as a graduate where you have no experience to leverage on. So you can't say, I haven't passed this and so exam. I'm very much, an expert in 1, 2, 3. So that can be, negotiation thing. But in your first 3 years of work, probably your exam are probably the biggest thing you can use to negotiate. So get those exemptions. And what I can say is that the growth is definitely, the growth is there. There's just a very, what I can say, an exponential growth in your income from when you start and as you go along. So it's not a lie per se, but maybe when you start, it's not so great. Like me, you came out of it with like 2 exams, and you're starting out with people that maybe already had like 7 or 8 exemptions. Obviously, you're not in the same footing. But if you pass as you go along, and if you also just realize when you're getting underpaid and confront someone about that. So speaking, I think having a personality to speak without thinking that you're confronting or attacking someone is probably one of the greatest assets you can have when it comes to compensation and just getting paid what you think is enough for you. So yes, there's a good exponential growth. I just don't know if I can speak about the numbers. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't want to get into trouble because some of these things are contractual, So the board exams, yourself, you have a BSc in Actuarial Science from Wits, and I'm sure you're taking the board exams. Are you?
Yes, I am.
And how many are you supposed to write and stuff?
Sure. I think I even kind of lose count of I mean, they've restructured them now, but when you speak in terms of CTs, blah, blah, the way that they were called when I started. So we had like 8 core technical exams. And then you have the risk management exam. And then you have the communications. I think that makes it 10. And then you have to also take 2 specialist technical exams. So specialist technical, that will be like either maybe life insurance, investments, those practice areas that I mentioned. And then after taking those technical exams, there's now the final applications exam. So I think I've counted 13 exams, right?
Yeah.
So in addition to those, those are like the 13 core exams. You also have sorry, I think someone opened my door. You also have a modeling exam that you have to take. And then just other more softer skill kind of vibe. So I think these 13 exams are probably what we call the core exams.
So usually, how long does it take for you to write all of them? Because it sounds like there is a lot, and the preparation and working as well.
Yes, that's just the thing, and it gets a bit I don't know if political is the word, but it gets a bit more involved than just saying how long does it take, because it takes you as long as it takes you to get through them. It takes as long as it takes you to get through them. That's just the truth. And I think South Africa is like ASA exams remind me of the South Africa conversation on its own, right? If you want to understand how long it takes, I think you need to separate out the stats by race.
Oh.
Separate out the stats by, because just saying, oh, it takes on average 5 years to quit, that's not true. That's true for a certain, socioeconomic section of South Africa. And then it's just completely not true for the other, if I may put it like this. So there's very few, I'm sure you know that there's very few Black actuaries, especially Black South African actuaries. I think we've just been taking much longer, and we obviously need to look into what are the issues that are specific to us, that it's just so much harder for us to get through this profession. But when you look at the other side, it's just, I mean, you have a lot of people coming out and qualifying 3-4 years after varsity. But that's not really true for the Black South African. I think it's a much bigger conversation than this 30, 40, or even an hour long chat on the career itself.
Wow, I thought at a professional level, once you're at that level, maybe things get easier, even as a Black person. But you're saying that is not really that smooth?
It's not, and I don't want to say it's the Blackness of it that leads you there, but I think we're faced with a clear situation where it's clear that there's just too few Black actuaries for a country like South Africa with the demographics that we have. So it's just an issue that I think a lot of us need to probably get out of our comfort zone and say, once you've identified an issue, you should probably do something about it. It's just something that I don't think is being given enough attention, and that's by us, not by anyone else. So it's a very, I truly don't like speaking of, actuarial or anything South African in average terms, because South Africa is very two separate little countries inside of them that lead completely separate lives, have completely different socioeconomic issues. So I'm just not a person that appreciates conversations where I'm going to come and tell you that, oh, this is the average. It's not the average for a certain. So yes, there's just too few of us, and I think it's a huge conversation that we need to look into. I mean, I know for me personally, it's just been, I think I've been doing probably much better in the past 4 years, but the first 3 or so years of my career were just, it's like you don't even know whether you're going or coming. And we were in varsity together. You remember how hard it was?
Yeah.
But performance was just never aligned. There was just always that difference in our performances, that I don't think we appreciate enough and we do enough to look into, okay, what is it? What do we do wrong? What goes wrong?
Do you feel like there is like lack of mentorship as far as Black professionals are concerned?
There is, and I think one of the saddest things about it is that there's also the fact that people that are supposed to mentor you are too busy trying to write their own exams. Because I remember I pursued, it's just pushing, to a point where, I pursued some people and I just felt like I could speak to this person, or then can you please mentor me, blah, 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 blah. But there was just always that breakdown in terms of this person was just way too busy. So so that's why I respect, people like, Mathule and the late Takaro for starting FBA, because that's something that just started. It's something that was, I think, that was addressing a particular issue that is just very particular to Black South Africans, in that we go to varsity and we don't communities, if I may put it like that. A lot of us go to varsity, and that kind of environment is the first time we see it. We go, and that's literally the very first time you're in a space like this. So first of all, that's intimidating to you. That's very intimidating to you, just very useless thing. But because this is the first time you're in a space like this, that just kind of affects you. So I like the fact that they started something like that, because it addressed a very deep issue that we're facing. But I think we need something similar that is just very specific to probably our profession, because there's a clear problem, and whenever these things are spoken about, the outcome is always, students maybe didn't pass and then they were not prepared enough. And I'm always like, okay.
But don't we have sorry to cut you.
No, you can continue, sir.
I was saying, don't we have the likes of Abasa? You know Abasa, right? Yes. I think it's something on accounting. Like, it's like an organization that focuses on accounting, and mentorship on Black accountants and stuff. We don't have the same equivalence in actuarial sciences yet.
We do have something similar, ASABA. And there's been a lot of great work that's been done, but obviously the statistics are still what they are. So obviously there's still a lot of work that's needed. We still need to think about what it is that still needs to be done, because yes, ASABA is there, and it's doing, I think from what I've seen, I think the first proper mentor that I had that I still speak to today was someone I met through ASABA. So it's there. But what I'm saying now is that if you look at the statistics of qualified actuaries in SA, they just don't speak to the demographics. They just don't. And that's not, I don't think that's something that anyone would say that is not concerning.
Yeah, it is a big concern. Part of what I do like this is actually I also felt like, no, I think we need to have conversations and people need to listen or watch, so that at least they have some sort of because I used to have a lot of students who would come to me and ask me questions, and I didn't have those questions. And I was like, how about if maybe I bring those people who would have those answers, and then
that's you taking initiative. That's you having identified a problem and saying this is how it can be addressed. So
no, we need to keep on doing that. Let's talk about the skill set, the interpersonal skills that maybe will propel someone, the technological or tools that can, and also the industry knowledge for someone pursuing a career in actuarial science.
Okay. So interpersonal skills, if I can start there, that's probably, you hear this a lot, that's something that probably a lot of actuaries struggle with. Um
What is that?
I think you would have seen that somewhere. So definitely you need to be someone that can, like I said earlier, someone that can speak. So if you feel like maybe something is not the way that it should be, put that out there. And two, just which is something that I think for me took me a bit of time to get out of your comfort zone. Like, you're going to have to work with people that are different from you, that have a completely different background from yours. So you need to be in a position where you're able to navigate through that. Don't just sit back and say, Ben is the kind of person that I understand, because then you won't be able to work with someone that's different from him, if I may put it like that. But also be confident in who you are. I think one of the things that helped me was to just remember who I am, and where I come from and where I started, which kind of leads you to understanding the incredible effort that you have made to get to where you are. Because when you forget where you come from, you end up being stressed by things that for someone of your background should just be vain. I don't know if it makes sense. Because you end up stressing, I don't have the nicest car, I don't have the blah, 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 blah. Stress, but when you think about the fact that you started in a position where you didn't have electricity sometimes at home, then you really just start appreciating the incredible progress that you've had through your life. So know who you are and be confident in that. So for me, I think that helps you to not get swayed. And I know this might sound like I'm derailing from the interpersonal skills question, but it's not. Getting swayed is not just a street concept, it's also an office concept. I don't know if that makes sense. If you know who you are and things that make sense to you, then in a setting, whether it's a boardroom or a meeting setting, you're going to be able to maybe call someone out if they're saying something that they shouldn't be saying to you or to anyone else. So you need to be able to do that. I think a lot of people think they're supposed to be too quiet because maybe it's arrogance, or maybe the bosses are gonna think you're a problem. No, they need someone that speaks so that this person can also speak to their clients. So so that's that. And also, I think part of managing your interpersonal skills is also managing the kind of space you're working in. If really this space is too out there for you, then maybe find a job in a space that's going to appreciate you for being very quiet and extremely technical, because that space exists. And I think after interpersonal skills, what else did you say?
Maybe the industry knowledge in terms of the skills.
Yes. So the industry knowledge in terms of us like being skilled.
Yeah.
I think that this takes me back to what you asked earlier about, do we apply what we learn at school or wherever? So I think one of the things that's probably different from a lot of people that I've heard in other careers with actuarial is that you actually apply a lot of what you learn. So normally getting through exams also means gaining an incredible amount of additional knowledge. So do try to get through the exams. And another thing that I did for myself was, when I noticed that I'm taking too much time writing these technical exams, there was this one particular one that was just giving me such a hard time, I stopped writing it because I felt like I needed to get to the next level. So I took the actuarial risk management exam, which is where a lot of the application starts. So you need to skill yourself with the exams. The exams is just one part of it. And then after I passed that one, I felt like, okay, let me do obviously the life insurance exam because I am in life insurance. I've passed that. So instead of going on and taking an exam of another practice, maybe health, so that I have 2 specialist technical exams, I went on to take the applications exam for life insurance. So I could have said, oh, this is probably a harder exam than taking one that has a better probability of passing. But because at this point in my career, I think me being skilled mattered more to me than accumulating an additional exam. I went that route of taking the applications exam. So I think this is more relevant to someone that's been working for, let's say, 5 years and still taking exams. You need to now structure, I feel, your exams in a way that they upskill. And then secondly, as a grad, try to rotate between divisions. So what I said about maybe staying in valuations, maybe do that for 2 years. And after that, if you're in a big insurer, it's very much possible, ask to rotate to a different section. So if you started in valuations, for example, ask to rotate to product development, so that 4 or 5 years in, you have a bit of a, I don't want to say complete, but a wide spectrum of your skill set from which you can kind of select which, the one that really speaks to you.
And the technologies, you guys don't code, right? I mean, coding is a thing now.
We do. So that's the thing. For varsity students, what I've seen, because they've kind of changed some of the exams, I've encouraged that. Like there's an exam, I think they call it something modeling, whatever they call it now. So, but basically it has an R section, like the programming language R. So you need to start working with that. I would encourage anyone in varsity to find things to do in it. Just find things to do in R, because 1, you're going to be tested in it. 2, I think it's used quite widely in the short-term space. So, and then we have Profit. So Profit is it's
Profit.
also an actuarial. Yes, it's an actuarial modeling program.
As in like Profit.
Exactly. I think it's spelled the same way. So, so it's an actuarial modeling software. That's you're probably going to use most of your time if you're working in a life insurance space in valuations. So there is that. So this liability calculations that we do, because most of it is for, if you have millions of policies, you're not going to be able to use Excel. So normally we use Profit for that. And also just Excel. Get well versed with it. Don't be like us who didn't know. We're struggling with VLOOKUP there. you know the struggle.
Yeah.
Also the computer what's working.
It's a problem.
So don't be like us in that sense, that start modeling whatever you can. If you need to, I think a loan account is one of the simple, most fun things to model. So try to do that. That repayment model that we did, I think, in financial maths is still very much relevant today. That's how you make sure that the banks are not playing with you, to make sure every month the interest on your account is what it actually should be. So I think modeling the loan schedule is probably, I know it's for learning, but it's also very practical. There's a lot of people that come to me and say, hey, you've once posted about, this spreadsheet that you had done when you were paying off your car. But I've probably shared that with maybe 7 other people. So play around in Excel, play around in R, play around in, I think there's a lot of Python usage as well in short term. So those are the guys you want to play around.
So from Haradingwana, later Kopitori, and then how did you decide that you're going to do actuarial science?